Now we're back for part 2 with Joan Ryan. Now I'd like to ask you on your work in education, because you've been a teacher for the past few years. You've been working as a teacher since
that's right.
You've left.
Yeah, in the last few years.
Few years. How do you think we can improve education for young people in the UK as a whole, not just go to education, but education standards? Because you yourself are a passionate campaigner for high quality education. How do you think it can provide opportunity for?
And you're right, I have been teaching at some of the time that I've been out of Parliament at Hertford Regional College, which is a great college, and there's quite a few students from Enfield who go there. I was teaching on the access to higher education, which is essentially students who haven't got the qualifications at school and come back to it a little bit later in life, sometimes only just past into their 20s, to have a second chance.
Okay.
Inspiring teaching them. I mean, I have absolutely adored teaching. I just think it is the best, most fantastic job for people. I loved it. I think it's so, so important. I would never have left it to do anything but become a Member of Parliament. And I've really, really got a lot out of going back to it. I've always been really passionate about education. I think for most of us, we know that is a major route for getting on in life and achieving your ambitions, and that most families are aspirational for their youngsters to do that at school. It's unusual that they're not. Even if they don't know how to help make it happen, they want it for their young people. I've never met any parents who said, I don't care if they don't do well at school. I've met parents who felt a bit defeated by the system and not known the way through. And I've met difficult kids who are having a tough time, or who are not playing the game and need to be set on the right track. And you need to be careful they don't get to disrupt others. So high standards of good behaviour are really important. But a good education is so, so important to anybody's life chances. And as a teacher, you're helping young people to achieve what they're capable of and fulfil their own potential and get on in life. So as a government, you've got to make sure that you are making the provision that enables our youngsters to achieve all they're capable of. And I think, things are going badly wrong. So for instance, in Enfield now, we have had a huge increase over the last 5 years of class sizes over 30. Sometimes 32, 34, 36 in a class. And this is because of the sustained assault on the local authority's budget, that creating more primary school places is extremely difficult. I think that's gives a very poor start in life to children. The most significant resource in any classroom is the teacher. So if you've got 36 children in a room, you're getting close to childminding rather than teaching. It's not acceptable. It's also not acceptable to have unqualified teachers. I want well-qualified teachers, good classroom assistants who do a vital job, and I don't want any classes, certainly not for 5, 6 and 7 year olds above 30. I don't think that's right. I think one thing we've always fell down on in this country as well is vocational education. I think we've got to do so much more about vocational education.
With apprenticeships?
Apprenticeships and other courses that lead to vocational degrees or for further study. It doesn't just have to be apprenticeships. But yes, for 16 to 19 year olds, there are now a lot less apprenticeships than there were in 2010. 1 in 6 young people are unemployed. That's 200,000 young people long-term unemployed. That's completely unacceptable. In Enfield North, that's 355 young people. That's just in this constituency. put 355 young people in a room and tell them they've got no future. That's not good. An awful lot more has got to be done. We've got to give equal value to vocational courses. We've got to make sure that they're rigorous, but we've got to make sure that they exist, that young people can apply for them. You know, there's over 50% don't go to university. There's plenty of young people who need good vocational education. And I think we've got to have a real focus on that. And certainly on apprenticeships. I really think the Labour proposition that if you want a contract, the public sector, you want a government contract, then you have to show that you're creating apprenticeships, real apprenticeships. I also think it's, Labour's proposal that after 6 months on job seeker allowance, 12 months on job seeker allowance, you will then be offered a real job.
Guaranteed.
A guaranteed job. A guaranteed job. And this will be paid for out of tax on the bankers' bonuses. And I think that's fair. And that's a good thing to do. All the evidence shows that it's easy to get a job from a job, that for young people just getting into a job is so important for their self-esteem, for their morale, and for being able to move forward. So a jobs guarantee after 12 months, if you've not managed to get a job within 12 months, then there'll be a job guarantee, and that will be compulsory. You have to take the job, but it will be paid, and it will be paid at the national minimum wage.
Okay.
So I think that's the right way to go.
For those, say, who've been through education, got the grades, went to university, and now are looking for a job afterwards, most of them have to find or do internships before they can enter a career. What is your view on paid internships, and what do you think, what is Labour doing to improve the situation for young people? Many young people are very annoyed and feel aligned by the fact they can't enter some careers they want to because they can't afford to start in, say, 3 months unpaid internship.
Yeah, I think it's a real problem, and I think it does work against young people who are from a less well-off background, who are not, got private income, whose parents can't afford to support them whilst they do an unpaid internship. So I think there is a definite issue here. I also think it's exploitation. So I think there's another issue there. So aside from the discriminatory nature, there's exploitation. What we think in the Labour Party is up to 4 weeks, fine, that can count as work experience. After 4 weeks, any internship, and remember the vast majority of internships last at least 3 months. After 4 weeks, then they should be paid at the national minimum wage.
But how do you think businesses can afford this? Do you think it's a proposition that is actually, say, helpful to businesses in the long term if they can afford to do this? Because a lot of internships are quite expensive to run.
I think business, if it's using a young person for free, and it's a need within its business, then it's wrong if they're not paying that young person, and it's that's just quite simply exploitation. It should be, that isn't the way we work in this country. We have employment law, we have employment rights, and people should be paid at the national minimum wage for the work that they do. And that's a business cost that business is going to have to take account of. And we shouldn't be encouraging businesses to exploit young people. And we shouldn't be encouraging them not to understand the nature of the full costs of their business. So it might well have an impact, but I think if it's a proper job, then it should have a proper wage.
Okay. When you first came into politics, you were at a time where female MPs were referred to as babes, Blair babes, for example.
Yeah.
How far do you think politics has come in terms of sexism? And because many of our readers are young women interested in going into politics, And what would you recommend a young woman or girl, if it's different to a young woman or man or not, do if they want to become an MP?
Well, there's no question that politics is male dominated still. Just look at the numbers in the House of Commons. I think it's
148
women out of 648. So, you know, that's quite a discrepancy. We've got a lot of work to do to get to more equal representation. And the only way we'll do that is by, yes, young women engaging and being involved, but also by, you know, changing our political culture to be more open and welcoming to women. I mean, in the Labour Party, you know, we've had all women shortlists which have made a difference. And you have to remember, there's a lot of men committed to this as well. In the Labour Party, the reason, you know, we've been successful with all women shortlists is because they've had the support of men and women. So it's not the case that men don't want women in politics. There's an awful lot of men who are absolutely committed to a fairer, less discriminatory, more equal system, and recognise, you know, and their values and principles are that it should be fair and we should have much more equal representation. I would say to any young woman, don't be put off. Get involved. You can change things. You'll be working with other like-minded women and quite a lot of like-minded men. So do not be put off by the fact that politics is still something of a male-dominated pursuit. It's terrifically important, and we will never get good politics and the best policies unless women are at that decision-making table as well. And the same is true for black, Asian, minority ethnic communities as well. We need everybody represented. I want to look along the benches of Parliament and I want it to look like my community. I don't want to look along the benches and just see lots of you know, white, male, middle-aged, middle-class men. And it is changing. I want to see some of them. I want to see some of those white, middle-aged, middle-class men because they make up our population. But I don't want it to be, you know, predominantly that. I want a good mix. That, you know, we live in what we call a representative democracy, so it should look like the population. And in a democracy, everybody should feel that they have as good an opportunity as anybody else being part of that parliament and representing people. So I'd say the best thing to do is get involved, change things, and you'll find a lot of people here waiting for you to be involved, to work with you to make that change.
For all young people included, any young person you think is interested in politics, should they just, because I think a lot of them feel that Westminster is not really listening to their concerns, or they feel that only a few that are interested in politics are who want to go into politics are those that will put themselves forward. Do you think there needs to be more effort to, say, get people who aren't that interested in politics, like open to government, say making sure they are looking at government and say in government themselves, because they're the people who are on the street and politics affects them as well?
Well, I think the way to change things is to get involved, but I entirely accept what you're saying, that if you're alienated by Westminster, I mean, I'm not surprised. The breaking of the tuition fees promise, absolutely outrageous. The proposal we just had from the Tory-led government that they're going to, if you're unemployed, a young person on job seekers allowance, after a short period of time, I think it's 6 months. But you're going to have to do compulsory community service. Now, you work that out, the hours they've said, I think it works out at something like £2 an hour. That sounds like exploitation to me. You know, more young people volunteer than in any other age group. And volunteering it is just what it says. You're volunteering to serve your community. And we shouldn't be turning that into some kind of compulsory, punitive activity because you can't find a job. The vast majority of people out of work, certainly young people, want to find a job. They're not out of work because they want to be. So we need to be doing much more about supporting them, giving good advice, good careers advice in school, making sure we do the things I've said, like increasing the number of apprenticeships by any company having a contract from government has to create apprenticeships, making sure that young people are paid the minimum wage. I don't think saying you're out of work, you've not managed to get a job, you can't have your job seeker allowance unless you do this compulsory service. I don't think that's the way forward with young people. No wonder they feel a bit alienated from politics.
Well, now, thank you very much, Joan Ryan. We're going to go for the quickfire questions. So, here they are. Blue or brown?
Oh God. I worked closely with both, and had different views on different policies that each of them had. But I actually enjoyed working with both of them, to be honest.
Can't choose?
I think it's difficult, but I was probably closer to Tony Blair in that I served for longer in his government than I served in Gordon's. And I think, although I don't think anybody's perfect, I think Tony was a more successful Prime Minister than Gordon.
Okay. If need be, who would you prefer to go into coalition with next May, the Lib Dems or Greens?
I'm not thinking about coalition, I'm thinking about Labour government.
Okay. Who's worse in the Labour politician's opinion, Cameron or Thatcher?
Well, I think Cameron has done more damage than Margaret Thatcher managed to. But I think what he's done is finished off Margaret Thatcher's agenda. I think she set about dismantling the post-Second World War settlement, where we set up the National Health Service, we built houses, we overhauled and reformed state education. All these things that, that post-war Labour government said were very important, that were clearly very important to the population. I think Thatcher really set about unpicking that settlement, that collective approach to those kind of services that we need. And I think David Cameron has very boldly finished that work to the point where the National Health Service is truly in crisis, to the point where we've got an education system that we can't control where the schools are. Lots of money, public money, is being spent in an unaccountable way. There are real problems occurring. We've got overcrowded classrooms. I think we've got real problems. We've got a massive shortage of housing, terrible shortage of affordable housing, and we've got major problems on our transport system. So all the things that were so important in that post-Second World War to serve the needs of the people of this country and really help this country be a success, they've been unpicked, generally in the interests of privatisation. And I think that slavish following of that kind of ideology is completely detrimental to the people of this country.
EU in or out?
In. I'd stay in.
Okay.
It needs reform, but we need to stay in. A lot of jobs are there. It's our major trading partner. It's economic madness.
Okay. Grammar schools, yes or no?
I wouldn't create any more. I'm not going to go to war over it. I think there are less than 100 grammar schools. We've got 27, 8,000 secondary schools that are not grammar schools. I think it's much more important we focus on them and the work they're doing and the needs of the students in those schools. terms of the grammar schools, I just simply wouldn't create any more, but I wouldn't go to war with them.
Okay. Free schools, yes or no?
I'd like to see free schools reconnected to the local family of schools, so that they're not just, you know, completely free in the way they are at the moment. I worry that free schools can set up anywhere, so even in our own borough here, we've seen free schools established in areas where we don't need them, and in areas where we need more schools, we're not able to get them established. So I want to give a much stronger role to local authority in those decisions, and I want free schools to be much more accountable, because it is public money, it's taxpayers' money, and they only seem to be accountable at the moment through Ofsted. I want them to be much more accountable than that. So I wouldn't go around closing schools, students in those schools now, and you know, their parents have placed them there in good faith, but I would reconnect those schools to the local family of schools.
English votes for English laws?
I don't think this issue is going to go away. I think you know, people do worry about it and are concerned about it, and I think we should look very seriously at if there's a way forward. But I don't think we should come up with some knee-jerk solution, as the Tories have done, which seems to be, to me, to be more about grabbing votes or worrying about UKIP than actually making sure that our democracy is protected and can work properly. So I think there is an issue to address. I think we should address the issue, but constitutional change, you know, you do it in a hurry, you can repent at leisure, it can have very far-reaching effects. So I think we should look at this properly and in much greater depth.
And the last one, support mass data retention. A lot of our readers are concerned about online privacy.
Support
Mass data retention.
So, I mean, we've seen, you know, some of the effects of releasing mass data. There is definitely an issue about security, and there's an issue about privacy. But you know, we have some very, very strong data protection laws. So it's I'd be careful about getting you know, too excited about it. I think first of all people need to be aware of the level of data protection that we have, which is very strong. When I was Home Office Minister, I was looking into some of this around the ID cards issue, and it was very reassuring, the level of data protection we have. But of course, you know, as online, the use of computers and everything else grows and grows and becomes, you know, more and more ways in which we can access information and our own information can be accessed, I just think you've got to keep ever vigilant on the protection of people's information.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Joan Ryan. That's all we have time for. Thanks, Joan Ryan, for speaking to us, and join us next time for our next instalment in our series of interviews with politicians. Thank you.